What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about AMD. Just had their earnings. I want to play some of the key highlights that you need to know from their recent earnings going into tomorrow. Aside from that, I'm just going to quickly go over some of the data points and things that you need to be aware of. Before we get into any of that, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. And if you don't want to hear about the data points and what to possibly expect, just skip forward. You can kind of listen to the call. It's all going to be chapters at the bottom. But AMD did close at $119.50. After hours, down 8.84%. During the overnight trading through EPYC and a lot of other brokers, it's kind of sitting around there. So of course, going into tomorrow, there's going to be an absolutely key make it or break it point that needs to really close above, and that is this S2, so $108.47. I do anticipate a little bit of volatility, so you could see a potential low of $104, but essentially if you do want to see AMD still kind of moving higher from here, coming from a technical standpoint, $108 is going to be that key one to really watch for. Aside from that, shorts did return 416,000 shares. So I think honestly the broader market was very surprised by their earnings, as was shorts. I like to analyze this not because AMD is a squeeze play or anything, but it goes to show sentiment. And typically, my experience, of course, I've seen shorts return leading into what they anticipate to be kick-ass earnings. So they were returning roughly at its peak of around 3.72 to 3.4, and so they again were kind of assuming alongside the broader market that AMD was going to have good earnings. So I think everyone was not necessarily positively surprised by that, but 3.4% of the free floats being shorted works out to be 54.78 million shares. As far as the overall dollar value, $6.31 billion in shorts. So it is kind of crazy, very high stuff, and you do actually see some signs of manipulation with AMD. It's obviously, again, not going to be a squeeze play or anything, but cost to borrow minimum is negative, so that does mean that there is some brokers out there physically paying people to short AMD. But aside from that, you did have 244 million in calls, 120 million in puts. 47% of all the options being done were optimistic in nature, and this was absolutely insanely high for the dollar value. So 364 million in total premiums. Day prior, 220, 182. So definitely a lot of money was getting into AMD through options. And looking at the put/call ratio, majority of that was optimistic. From this right here, you do see a consensus for it to be still roughly around that $20 range. Bears on the flip side are anticipating for it to be sub roughly around that kind of $100 range, so 100 to 106. So a lot of volatility regardless, but definitely watch for those key support and resistance points to hold. As far as analyst ratings, so far only 5 have come out today. Oddly enough, you did have some ratings that were one day prior to the earnings. I've never really understood why analysts do that. It doesn't make all that much sense, but you did have $250. So you have the highest rating that just came out, and so that was done by Rosenblatt Hans, who has a 69% success rating. Aside from that, 140, and that was done by this individual, 55% success rating, 147, 140, and then 135. So analysts seem to be fairly optimistic. So I'm gonna kind of move over to here. It is only 6 minutes, so not all that long, but it does go over the absolute key highlights that you need to know coming from a investor standpoint. So let me know your viewpoint. Are you buying? Are you selling? Whatever else. So don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And then on a side note, if you do want all this information to be completely free, so analyst ratings, forecast, ownership, everything under the sun, take a look at EPYC, link in the description below and also the comments. Sign up. A lot of good information, and plus, like I said, it's free, so might as well take advantage. With all that, I appreciate all of you watching, and then stay tuned for this.
AMD projects strong AI and data center growth in 2025 with MI350 launch mid-year. Earnings call insights, advanced micro devices, AMD Q4 2024 management view, chair and CEO, highlighted AMD's transformative year, emphasizing record annual revenue of $25.8 billion, a 14% increase year over year, driven by strong growth in the data center and client segments. The data center segment accounted for 50% of annual revenue, with a 69% year-over-year increase in revenue for Q4, reaching $3.9 billion. 𝗖𝗢 announced MI350 series production will be pulled forward to mid-2025 due to strong customer demand, calling it the biggest generational leap in AI performance, with a 35x increase in compute performance compared to the prior generation. 𝗖𝗢 noted record desktop channel sellout, driven by Ryzen desktop processors and robust performance in the client segment, which reached $2.3 billion in revenue for Q4, a 58% year-over-year increase. 𝗖𝗓, EVP, CFO, and Treasurer, reported Q4 non-GAAP gross margin of 54%, operating income of $2 billion, and diluted EPS of 1.9 cents, a 42% year-over-year increase. Outlook: AMD expects Q1 2025 revenue of approximately $7.1 billion, slightly down sequentially but up 30% year-over-year, driven by strong growth in the data center and client businesses. Gross margins are forecasted to remain at 54%. The company anticipates double-digit revenue and EPS growth for 2025, driven by continued momentum in the data center GPU and CPU businesses. 𝗖𝗢 highlighted opportunities for increased deployments in AI workloads and the launch of new products like the MI350 series. Management reiterated confidence in capturing a larger portion of the AI accelerator market, projecting the segment to grow to tens of billions in annual revenue in the coming years. Financial results: AMD reported Q4 revenue of $7.7 billion, a 24% year-over-year increase, driven by significant growth in data center and client segments. Full year 2024 revenue reached $25.8 billion, up 14%. Data center segment revenue grew 69% year-over-year to $3.9 billion in Q4, supported by strong demand for EPYC CPUs and MI300X GPUs. The client segment delivered $2.3 billion in revenue, up 58%, driven by Ryzen desktop processors and AI-enabled notebooks. Gaming segment revenue fell 59% year-over-year to $563 million due to reduced semi-custom sales, while embedded segment revenue decreased 13% to $923 million due to mixed demand. The company generated $1.3 billion in cash from operations during Q4, with free cash flow reaching $1.1 billion. Q&A: Aaron Rakers, Wells Fargo 4. Questioned the growth trajectory of the GPU business in 2025. 𝗖𝗢 responded that the MI350 launch mid-year would act as a catalyst, with data center GPU revenue expected to grow strongly in the second half. Timothy Arcuri, UBS, inquired about competitive pricing in the server CPU market. 𝗖𝗓 expressed confidence in AMD's ability to maintain growth, citing the strength of the EPYC portfolio and TCO advantages. Vivek Arya, Bank of America Securities, asked about long-term growth rates for the data center GPU business. 𝗖𝗢 reiterated confidence in achieving tens of billions in revenue over the next few years, supported by a robust product roadmap. 𝗖𝗓 Rasgon, Bernstein Research, probed sequential trends in data center GPU revenue. 𝗖𝗢 clarified that revenue would remain flattish in the first half of 2025, with stronger growth expected in the second half, driven by MI350. Sentiment analysis: analysts expressed cautious optimism, focusing on the GPU ramp and competitive positioning. Questions highlighted concerns about the pacing of AI revenue growth and competitive dynamics in server CPUs. Management displayed confidence, particularly in the data center and AI businesses. 𝗖𝗢 emphasized the strength of AMD's roadmap, stating, "We are bullish on the long term," and highlighting strong customer interest. Compared to Q3, management's tone remained confident, but acknowledged variability in customer deployments and product transitions. Quarter-over-quarter comparison: Q4 marked a 12% sequential revenue increase over Q3, with data center and client segments driving growth. Gross margins remained consistent at 54%. Management provided clearer guidance on the MI350 timeline, pulling the launch forward to mid-2025. Compared to the initial second-half target discussed in Q3, analysts' focus shifted from initial AI product adoption to broader market share gains and the competitive landscape. Risks and concerns: Management acknowledged seasonal revenue declines in Q1 2025 and potential lumpiness in data center GPU deployments. Analysts raised concerns about competitive pricing pressures in server CPUs and the timing of AI product adoption. Embedded segment recovery remained mixed, with ongoing softness in industrial and communications markets. Final takeaway: AMD delivered record Q4 and full year 2024 results, driven by strong performance in the data center and client segments. The company is positioned for double-digit growth in 2025, supported by a robust product roadmap that includes the MI350 series launch mid-year. While challenges in competitive pricing and the embedded market remain, AMD's confidence in capturing a larger share of the AI accelerator market underscores its growth potential.